I recently changed my internet service provider, and when I did so, like many other people, one of the first things I do is run a speed test. So go on speedtest.com and try and figure out exactly what download speeds am I getting, what upload speeds am I getting, and compare it against the guaranteed speeds that the ISP has promised me with. Now, when I did this, everything looked great. I mean, I understand that there's obviously some time for the connection to settle down and stabilize, but for the most part, I was getting exactly what I was looking for. So for context, I should be getting about 500 megs download speed and about 60 to 70 meg upload. So that's what I saw on speedtest.com on the results, and so I was happy days. Went along with my day, didn't really think about anything else, and just left the connection to do what it needed to do to stabilize. So later on in the day, I decided to upload a large video file to Google Drive, and that's where I noticed something. So I had the same package with my previous internet service provider as I did with this new internet service provider. So both had the same downloads and upload speeds. The only difference here was that I had actually changed my ISP. That's about it. In the past, when I used to upload, let's say a 20 gig file on Google Drive, it would take me 40 to 50 minutes. This time around, with my new ISP, it was taking about 5 hours. And the weird thing was, when I run the speed tests, everything shows normal. I'm getting 70 megs upload speed, download speed looks great. So I start thinking, what's causing this block? It doesn't make sense. And it's only with Google services, so Google Drive, YouTube, anything where I need to upload to Google services, it was being restricted. So let me show you what I saw and the steps I took to identify what the problem was, and then let's take it from there. So right now I have everything set up as my ISP has expected. So I'm using their router, their wiring, etc. Just going to run a speed test, as you can see. Let's use the traditional one that everyone seems to use all the time. And just going to run this speed test. Shut up, go away. Right, okay. So as you can see, I'm getting download speeds of 520, 515. Let's see what it stabilizes to, 516. My package should be 500, so getting 16 extra megs. I'm not complaining. And upload is around, pushing up to 68, 69. Would it touch 70? Maybe not. Oh, yeah, it did. 70, so it stabilized at 70 megs, right? Exactly what I've been looking for. So these are the speeds that I get, and these match the package that I'm on. So now I have Google Drive open. What I'm going to do is just upload a sample video file. I have to, let's just say this 500 meg just because we're on time. So I'm going to open this and try and upload it and see what time it shows. So give it a few minutes. You can see it's starting to slow down with the estimated time left. It's about 27, 26. But what I want you to concentrate on is this figure right here. You can see the upload, which is in red, speed is limited for some reason to around 11.5, 11.9-ish. And there's no reason for it, because on the speed test, it's showing that we should be hitting speeds of 60 to 70. So where we have 6 times slower speeds than what the speed test is achieving. And it's conflicting information. And so either the ISP on their side is restricting any uploads, which can't be the case because speed test and any other testing service is working absolutely fine, is showing great speeds. And all they are doing is simply just downloading a file and uploading a file. That's how they measure your speeds. So then the next question is, does the router have any configuration that's causing a restriction on certain uploads, maybe to Google Drive, maybe to Dropbox, etc.? Because I have the same thing with YouTube as well. And so if you guys are experiencing anything like this, first thing I'd recommend is grabbing a tool. So this is called Stats. It's available for Mac users. I'm sure there's an equivalent for Windows users, but all you really need to do is see the live data for what is being downloaded and uploaded by your PC or computer to the internet. And through this live data, you'll then be able to identify if there is a limit on your speeds. So when you're downloading data, you should see this number get very close to what your speeds are guaranteed to be by your ISP, and the same thing with upload. Now, there are obviously various factors to this. So if this issue was only on Google services, the next step you could take is to maybe have a look and try and upload a file on your 4G, 5G network through your phone to see if there is a restriction on there. And if there is, that might be server side with Google. But I've already done that, and I know that that isn't the case. On my phone, uploads are working as expected. Of course, not as fast as Wi-Fi, but that's just because of the way that the speeds are. But I'm not getting hindered as much. This is just to diagnose your issue. So if you're facing something similar to this, where you see a speed, with my ISP, I've noticed that it's always at about 11.9. That could vary. It could be different speeds, but generally, if you see this speed limited when you're uploading and you've identified that the server side is working totally fine, then most likely your ISP is restricting upload speeds through the router itself. And this configuration you won't actually be able to interfere or interact with because it's locked down. And that's where PPPOE comes in. PPPOE stands for Point-to-Point Protocol over Ethernet. And what that essentially means is it allows you as an end user to not use the router provided by your ISP and instead connect your own router. So a Netgear router, a Linksy, whatever the router is, as long as it supports PPPoE. So that's a big asterisk. It needs to support that protocol. But if it does, you can connect your router directly to the ONT. So the ONT is this little box. If you have OpenReach in the UK, it will look something like this, or any of these, where it's a little box that your router, that your ISP provides, it connects to. You instead connect to your own router. In order for this to work, however, you need a few configuration details from your ISP. So you need to contact your ISP and find the username and password for PPPoE. So if you just ask them, I want to set up PPPoE, I want a username and password for the configuration, they should then provide it to you, and then you can then go ahead and use this for the configuration. So for the hardware changes, I'm just going to show you now what that looks like. So the router that your ISP provided would look something similar to this. Obviously not exactly this because each ISP has different types of routers. But when you set this up, you would have plugged in a cable, an Ethernet cable from your router to this box over here. Now this box is your ONT. So rather than the ONT connecting to your router that your ISP provided, you're now going to disconnect this cable. So the cable should say, so in this case it says WAN or WAN, and you're just going to disconnect this from that port and plug it directly into your router. So in this case I have a Linksy router, so I'm just going to plug this directly into the port that is meant for the WAN connection. Try and do this one-handed. Click in. Right, so that's now clicked in. And now the next step is just to configure everything, which we can do back on the computer. But for now, you can get rid of all your old router setup. You don't need that anymore. So any of the stuff that your ISP provided you, so the router, the power cable, etc., you can just keep in the attic. We don't need that because we're now going to be connecting the ONT directly to our own router and configuring everything so that it all works fine. So now you're back at your computer. It's pretty much the last few steps. What you're going to need to do is go to your router's configuration page and make a few amendments. So what you need at hand is the username and password for your connection. So get that from your ISP and then you're good to go. So in this case, I'm using Linksy. Your page might be different, it might look different, the steps might be different. What I would recommend is you go into Google and type in PPPoE and then the name of your router, and you should be able to find a guide into how to connect everything up and what the configuration looks like. But in my case, in case anyone is using Linksy, and also generally it's around the same thing, regardless of what brand you have, But you're going to see something where you are able to amend the connection type. So in this case, I already have done it, but you would see something like this, where it will be on automatic configuration with DHCP. What you're going to need to do is change it to PPPOE and input your username and password. Sometimes you might also need to clone the MAC address. So say, for example, you've put this in, you put username and password, and you've applied it, and you've waited a minute or two, and you still don't have internet. It might be that the connection's locked down to the router's MAC address. So have a look at the back of the router that your ISP provided, and it should have the MAC address of that router. What you're going to need to do is note that MAC address down and input that into here. And what this will do is allow your own router to pretend like it's the router that your ISP provided, if that makes sense. So all we're doing is cloning the MAC address, and that hopefully would allow the connection to work. So that's something that was missing in the guides, etc. for me, and this is what finalized it and made it work on my side. And now I'm just going to show you the difference in speeds and what the connectivity is like. I'm going to upload that same file that I uploaded earlier. And you'll see the upload speeds are now 74. So 74 megabits per second compared to, I think it was 11.9 restriction. So now there is literally no restriction. Everything is downloading as it should do. Oh, sorry, uploading as it should do. And the time for this file to upload is reducing every second. And well, as you can see, it's doing it at the rate that speed tests are showing my upload speed to be. So that wraps up this video. If you are experiencing any issues with uploading to YouTube, uploading to Google services, or for any services that matter, have a look at your upload speeds or your download speeds, whichever problem you're having, and compare it against what the speeds you get when you're running a speed test. And that should indicate whether there is some sort of configuration block that's happening on the ISP router that they've provided you with. And if that is the case, have a look to see if your ISP supports PPPOE and if the router that you have also supports that. If you do, or if you go ahead and purchase a new router because the problem is such a massive headache, I don't blame you. Go ahead and grab the credentials that you need from your ISP, connect your ONT directly to your new router or your third-party router, and then set up the configuration details, so your username, password, sometimes clone your MAC address, and hopefully that should have you set up so that you don't have any router side configuration restrictions on your speeds, and that would then allow you to upload, download with zero restrictions from a router's perspective. Of course, the ISP might also be restricting on their side perspective. That unfortunately we can't control, but we can do as much as we can from within your house. Hopefully you guys found this video useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and I will catch you in the next one.